Yo, what's going on, guys? Koi here. While I'm on my little hiatus, I thought I'd actually take a look at Project Jojo's latest update. And honestly, if you are a King Crimson fan, this is probably the update for you. They also did a lot of quality of life stuff that happened prior days after this update. So we will be going over this stuff. I'm sorry I'm a little late on this, but honestly, I just need to, do a little self-care from time to time. Let's get to it. This was the Insanity Patch Part 2. So, with the Insanity Patch Part 1, we got a bunch of different content, mostly having to do with the game's main changes to most of the stands in the game, allowing these stands to, be stronger in the meta, but obviously some stands are going to be much stronger than others just due to the fact that that's the way that's been set up. You know what I mean? If you give these massive modifiers to like different stands and stuff like that, of course you're going to see a major difference compared to the way that some modifiers work on some other stands. But I digress. Let's go ahead and talk about it. There were some bug fixes with the prison break. I won't really go into detail on those just because there's just like some that just have to do with things that have been fixed, which you guys have probably already noticed in game. But I do want to talk more about the King Crimson rework. I believe that the King Crimson rework is absolutely insane. They got rid of Strong Punch, and it's just we're going to talk a little more about that in a second. First, we're going to talk about Chop. So Chop now deals 50% more damage when opponents are suffering from bleed or blindness status effects. The cooldown has been decreased from 8 seconds to 6 seconds, which I think is absolutely insane. Chopped is like one of the strongest moves in King Crimson's criteria, also having to do with like backstabs at that 50%. You're looking at a fat chunk of damage. Now, the only reason this is not as powerful as you think, because this has to do with also the nerf that King Crimson got, which was the damage multiplier went from 100 to 50. So 50% damage multiplier from back attacks, which means that, a lot of the original backstab abilities that did like a crap ton of damage had to be nerfed, obviously. So now Chop is going to be the only move that really keeps that original damage from the Insanity Update's first patch. They also removed Strong Punch and they replaced it with Blood Scatter. Blood Scatter in front of your enemy, blinding the opponents for 6 seconds, can be used while in timer race without ending its effect. Now, this is very important. This is actually a brand new thing that's been added to King Crimson, which is you can use any type of effect that literally does not do any damage, but it just pretty much does like any type of status affliction. Then you could pretty much abuse the person right after and get a damage bonus with that being the case. So that's very, very cool. Yeah, so Blood Splatter is just going to be that new move that kind of is like a CC move for early game King Crimson players and late game King Crimson players. Mostly a really nice PvP touch. I think they really want to emphasize on PvP for now and then come up with PvE later. We'll just see what happens with that. Honestly, Backstabber now changes melee attacks visual. Now it's kind of like shows what the attack looks like. There's a little bit of blood splatter now every single time you get a successful backstab, and you'll know if you got the backstab or not. So a lot of people were confused about how backstabs worked and stuff like that. There you go. Now you have an indicator that will tell you if you got your backstab or not. Next, we got the damage multiplier decrease, which we already talked about. But let's talk about Epitaph rework. No longer functions as a counter. I don't like that part, but we'll talk more about it when I'm done with talking about the notes here. Now functions as an area of slow effect, similar to how it worked in PJJ1. It can be used with time erasure without ending its effect. Now, the problem I have, right, with this is that I honestly love the idea of a counterattack. Counterattacks make a lot of damaging stands that need to play cooldowns very broken. And there's also another thing I really enjoy, and that's Impale. Now, why we didn't get more of a touch-up on Impale, like more of a CC on that'd be way cooler, but, it is what it is. Maybe they'll change these effects later. Honestly, it's very up in the air right now because the game is still in beta, still in development, that a lot of the changes they're making could be for the better or for the worse. It really just comes down to how you guys, the community, really feels about it, and let us know what you think down below. Let them know how you feel in the Discord, and yeah, we'll go from there. All right. Next, we're going to be talking about some blessings. Hollowed. Both explosion type ranges increased by 40%. Smiting. Attacks now gain a piercing property when smiting. Lightning AoE increased range by 100%. Base damage multiplier decreased from 1.5 to 1.3. So that is a major difference. Honestly, it's more. I would say they got rid of a little bit of damage and gave it a lot more usability. Honestly, and I feel it. I feel like smiting is probably going to be one of the new better and meta versions of different abilities, and we'll see how it goes from there. Defiled now causes all attacks to deal true damage when activated. This is broken. True damage, if you don't know, pretty much means guaranteed damage no matter what. It neglects damage modifiers. It neglects any type of passives that the other person has, and these are just very broken abilities to have. Angelic now grants a 10% haste when immortality is active. This is honestly a very negligible haste. If you really wanted the haste to really change, because let's be honest, let's say you have a Roblox walking speed of 12, right? And you add 10% on top of that, you get a 1.5 walking speed increase, maybe less. So that's not a very big increase. Now, what I would do is I would give it a 50% increase, because then you can get away faster, and that actually gives you room to juke your opponent, especially if they already are very good at movement. But, we'll see what happens. Anointed, base damage trigger decreased from 10,000 to 1,000, making it more consistent. Percentage conversion decreased from 25% to 10%. That is a bit of a major nerf for Anointed. Hopefully we see some more love for that one for sure. Holy Saint Fire damage tick stacked from 1,000 to 3,000. This is very broken. If you already have something that already stacks and then you get this stack too, oh my god. I'm just going to start burning your opponents to death. Septic. Drain rate decreased by 25%. That's kind of nice. Sacred. Added the effect caps damage received per attack by 40,000. So that is kind of nice, especially if you're dealing with something like King Crimson. This low-key shuts down broken one-shot King Crimson builds, so that's kind of cool. Unless they have the piercing ability, then you're kind of cooked. Heavenly. Also, I don't know if that works against true damage. I think they should have actually said if that works against true damage or not. That probably would help a lot of people understand that bit. But I guess that's going to require testing. Heavenly changed charge per needed orb increased from 17,500 to 25,000. The orb's damage increased though from 5,000 to 16,000. That's very broken. Also, the hit stun increased from 1.1 to 0.3. So if you do hit the heavenly orbs, that is very broken. Honestly, the amount of damage it does now and what you're going to need to get it off is amazing. Enemies struck by Exalted cannot use their attacks for 5 seconds. That is a long time. 5 seconds is a cooldown to some of these moves. Now, they also did this major change where now every sub-spec kind of permanently has their active skill, which is kind of nice because it didn't make sense for people to be able to heal with Hormone, but also be able to work with, how do you say, would not be able to work with Blood, because Blood is supposed to be way better. But, I digress. Hopefully they fix that in the future. We got Sunstone. Where Sunstone, the sub-spec is now permanently active. The Spinstone, the Bloodstone, the Solar Vampire, and the Blood... all the stones, pretty much. All the freaking effects that literally just have to do with defensive passives are now available, which is kind of nice. We do have True Vampire, which now increases all damage taken by 20%, increased movement speed up to 15%, and lifesteal on all attacks from 30 to 50%. Now, I think this is a nice touch, but I think that if Vampire is really going to come back, Vampire itself needs a buff in order to come back, which kind of sucks. Because right now, it just doesn't do enough damage to actually show that lifesteal is going to give you anything back. It's not that good. The True Hormone buff is pretty nice. The damage resistance did get, decreased by 20%. Honestly, the thing is about negative status effects in the game right now, There are some moves that are not considered negative status effects, but will tear you apart like it is a negative status effect. It's really harsh. Um, I digress. Some of this stuff I don't really need to talk about. A lot of it has to do with just mainly major changes that are like we'll take a look at later, or they're like negligible, so they don't really make too much of a difference in the game and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens next. Shutting down a lot of stuff. So right here they have the hotfix 1A, which is True Vampire now increases all damage dealt by 20% in addition to the previous effect. So this is kind of nice. True Vampire did need this buff. We do have True Stone Human, which was very broken. Now subtracts 10,000 damage from incoming attacks. So that's very important. King Crimson. Area of effect size did get buffed for King Crimson, and this is very, very nice that this actually happened because there's a lot of changes to King Crimson which I do like in this one compared to the original change that happened with King Crimson. You know, the exposed ability applies a 15% exposed ability. If you don't know what that means that you're going to take 15% more damage. We do have Chop. Now has an indicator when dealing a critical hit when the victim is bleeding or blind. And then we have Impale, which gets a major damage increase from that 30% original to 80%, which is very, very crazy. We have White Snake, which did get some nerfs finally. Honestly, White Snake needed these nerfs because it's very broken right now in the meta. And the defensive boost was absolutely insane and absolutely broken. And then we got the last hotfix that did happen, which was Epitaph now dodges incoming attacks during the move startup. The activation duration increased by 50%, so it's like free iframes. And then cooldown increased from 16 seconds to 20 seconds, which I think is a little harsh, but, you know, Epitaph's really cool. It's going to be the way it is and stuff like that. We'll see what happens next. This is a major change right here, and probably the last thing we need to talk about today. And that's greatly reduced the item spawn from players' incoming ratio. There's a obviously as a penalty on smaller servers, increase the despawn pause timer from 10 seconds to 15 seconds when a player is near an item. They doubled the base spawn rates for Steel Ball, Hamon Mask, Stone Roca, Vampire Mask, Stand Arrow, and Cash Sack. And they increased the base spawn rates of the corpse parts and the Aja by 25%. They increased the base spawn rate of Rokas, new Rokas, by 300%, which I think is pretty crazy. But I think it's because we never really saw new Rokas around compared to the way that we've seen other things. So yeah, that pretty much has to do with these patch notes. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell down below. I'll see you guys later. Take it easy and peace.